welcome to this week's episode of Not D&D, brought to you by EN World. I'm your host, Jessica, and this week we are joined by Robert, who's here to tell us about Cold Sun. Robert, thanks so much for coming on.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, I'm so excited to talk to you about Cold Sun. It was a really interesting concept, and I've not seen many games that look at this part of surviving at the dawn of civilization, and so I'm really excited to learn more and talk to you about the game. But before we do, I'm going to be nosy and dig into your background and history like I do with all my guests. So I'm going to start off with asking if you remember the first tabletop role-playing game that you played.
Oh, 100%. And that would be Savage Worlds. When I was about 6 years old, my dad ran a Savage Worlds game for me and two of my elementary school friends. And that was my introduction to role-playing games, and I was off to the races after that.
Amazing. Oh, so your dad's a role player as well. So
my dad's go on.
So he introduced you to the world of this, I was saying.
My dad is not only a avid dungeon master, game master, and role player, but he is also a role-playing games designer. He worked on a couple of GURPS books, Star Hero, and a number of other stuff, including the Star Wars Adventure Journal.
Oh, wow. So you had a great education your whole childhood. I bet there was always, let's try this game. Have you seen this? Have you thought about how the design does this? Oh, that's so great. I bet so many people listening are very jealous. So I'm guessing that was your intro into wanting to be a game designer and make games yourself then, because I guess you'd grown up seeing it. It was just a very normal thing to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It was. I'm really privileged to have this kind of on-ramp to game design and to messing around with systems and breaking things, seeing how things work. That level of interplay with systems is very natural to me.
Yeah. And what made you, I mean, obviously you were always going to be somebody that played a lot of games given, your parents and things, but when did you decide you wanted to also make games yourself? When did you kind of take that step and start, playing around and making things?
That would definitely have been during COVID. During COVID, I ran a number of games with my high school friend group. I was in school when COVID hit, and we were all locked away. We were all trapped in our own little quarantine spaces, own little bubbles, and so there wasn't really anything to do apart from going to Zoom school than play games with each other. And so we did a lot of game designing. We did a lot of homebrewing stuff. And eventually it blossomed from just kind of messing with pre-existing systems and homebrewing stuff for our home games to full game designs. I and a number of my friends from that same group began working on or reached the point of publishing role-playing games.
Amazing. So is that that same group that's involved with Cold Sun as well?
Absolutely. You see many of their names in the credits and acknowledgments. Many of them helped me play test it. Many of them its earliest and kind of roughest form and helped hone it into the, well, I don't like to think of it as a diamond, shinier piece of coal that you see today.
Oh, no, wonderful. Well, the game is out and available now on itch, and the links are on the screen and in the show notes. So whilst we're talking, you can go and check out there. There is a free quick start guide that you can download. So if you're interested, you can download that and have a read through as we're talking or you're listening. But Robert, let's just start talking about Cold Sun. So that's what we're here to do. So could you give us the intro and the brief? If people haven't heard about the game before, how do you introduce it to them?
My elevator pitch is almost always the same. It's imagine a role-playing game in which the equivalent of a +3 sword of a really powerful magic item is an iron sword. So it's a game about scarcity. It's a game about survival. It's a game about kind of terror and tension. And it's a game that centers a lot of the things that most role-playing games see fit to kind of pass over, right? So making camp, finding food, finding shelter, finding clean water. All of these are aspects that most role-playing games will kind of, maybe pay some attention to, maybe even center for an adventure. But most of games see fit to like kind of slide over that in service of a greater adventure. And something I'm really interested in is seeing how those, like that minutia, that real that detail is so important to like the development of a story and how characters interact with the world.
Yeah, I mean, when I was reading through, it's a very, like you say, it's very detailed. You're looking at those elements of survival, which is like the really basics of like, are we going to be warm enough? Are we going to have enough food? You know, are we going to be safe from things in the world that might attack us? Because I'm not, you know, like humans are now, we're not the apex predator in the environment. But whilst it had that detail in the storytelling, I didn't feel that the rules were really complicated and intimidating. Which was really nice. So could you give a brief overview of what the core kind of mechanics of the game are?
Sure, absolutely. Core mechanics are a pool-based D6 dice system. Either dice from your abilities, from your tools, from your talents, like kind of skills that you have, and from the environment itself, and use all of these D6s you've collected to roll in big pools to try and accomplish stuff. And you count up the number of successes against a target number that you get. That's the core engine. The other kind of core engine is this idea of vigor, where every character, through eating food and maybe some other things, but mostly the crux is eating food, gain these points of vigor. And every time you take damage, it's a health pool, you lose vigor, but also every time you do something, you take vigor. Every action you take, every ability save you make, every kind of moment of exertion drains your vigor just the same as damage does. And it creates this relationship where you are constantly managing how much you lose in exchange for how much you're going to gain.
Fantastic. It's got that real survival element from that, which, yeah, like you say, everything you do, it kind of matters, and it's kind of a resource management kind of situation, which is really interesting. What inspired you to make this game, like in terms of perhaps games design, but also just for the idea and the setting?
Well, so it's been kind of an interesting journey. I think I write about this some in the introduction to the core rulebook, but so I'm trying not to repeat too much of what I say in there.
Yeah.
I started working on Cold Sun September of 2023, and the ideas that kind of went into it are things that I've been hanging on to for a while. So a lot of these ideas are about kind of settings without humans, where magic is kind of what's the word? Fickle. Magic is fickle and like temperamental.
Yeah.
But also where the setting is in this Neolithic or Bronze Age, which is a setting that I don't really see a lot, but one that I'm really interested in. Through college, I've built up a background in the Bronze Age and in the Neolithic Age, that kind of level of paleontological, archaeological scholarship, and it's a really fascinating period to me.
Yeah.
And so I'm really interested in playing games in it, but there aren't that many systems which are really engineered to represent what the challenges of those periods were. So like I could play, I hate to say it, a D&D game on about that's set in this period, and it would be serviceable, but it wouldn't really center the main struggle that like individuals up to like societies and civilizations are facing and dealing with.
Fabulous. And in terms of like mechanically as well, I think you mentioned like Blades in the Dark and Veins of Earth and those sorts of inspirations as well. Has the game design changed a lot since when you started working on Cold Sun to the end? Was there anything that, went out or came in that surprised you or you didn't plan?
Oh yes, so much. I think if I go back to my 0.1 draft, I think only the dice system is recognizable. Everything else, that and the core abilities. The core abilities of heart, eye, hand, foot, body, stomach, brain, and soul are all, original to the first time I kind of sat to write it. But everything else, up to and including how you resolve checks, or tests, rather, I call them tests, up to and including when you resolve tests, really overwent a lot of change and a lot of fiddling with, and a lot of it getting broken by then I go in and fix it again. And so there was this very iterative kind of building process as I built up towards what is now the final version.
Lovely. With the abilities, I think it's interesting they've stayed the same, because there are interesting abilities. Like when you first see them, they look different from other abilities on character sheets. So like the heart and the soul part, I'm like, yeah, I kind of understand. But then you've got, and also the brain and the stomach. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. But hand, eye, and foot were interesting to me. Can you talk a little bit about which checks you use for which abilities and why you decided on these specific ones?
Sure. It's a great question, because one of the core things about Cold Sun was getting away from kind of a lot of recognizable aspects of role-playing games where abilities and kind of personal abilities are really broken down to a much more abstract level. And I was really interested in doing the opposite and more visceral and much more like immediately recognizable. And so heart, eye, hand, foot, body, stomach, brain, soul, all of these are connected to physical parts of your body. And the kind of conceit of actions, as you take actions, which you roll 2 of the abilities to do, is okay, what do I physically need to do to carry out this thing? What do I physically need to put together to make this thing happen? So like if you want to throw something, I mean, hand-eye coordination is a real term, and it's the same in the game. If you want to fight something, it's much more like physical and you use your body. If you want to like kind of feel something out and use your gut, you literally use your gut, you use your stomach.
Nice. I like that. It was really interesting. I like that approach, because I think we're so used to seeing the classic, charisma, intelligence type thing, but this felt really different. The soul's the interesting one, though. What sort of checks would we be using soul with? How could I get that ability in my game?
Soul is all about magic. I think that's the only thing it really involves itself in. And magic is temperamental. Magic is angry. It's almost fully conscious, and it really doesn't like being used.
Okay, wow. How do you start using magic in the game? Because like you say, it sounds like a very dangerous thing that in the world not most regular people are using then.
That is where the aspect of talents come in. Talents are, skills and abilities that you learn over the course of the game with, and magic is really something that you've got to learn and develop, both to unlock the ability to do it, but then you have to use your memory and memorize spells and gather the ability to cast mostly rituals, but there is some ability to cast really kind of spontaneous, very powerful effects called spells. And all of these workings, as I call them, are very powerful, very scary, and have a lot of potential to totally backfire.
I know. Do you have an example of a spell or something, just to give us an idea of what one would be?
Absolutely.
Any particular favorites?
Well, and what I'll ask now is I can pull up the one in the core rulebook, which is, I believe, Radiance of, Blessing of the Sky Hunter is a classic. Or I could give you a little sneak peek and open up one of the workings and spells that I'm working on for my upcoming release in the coming year.
Sounds good. Yeah, I love a sneak peek. Let's do that.
Absolutely. So let's see. Here's a great. For spells, again, most magic is really centered on this idea of ritual, and and most workings are rituals, long form things that you do over a long time. The classic example is in the book is Blessing of Sky Hunter, where you do these series of checks, put them all together to create this this large overarching effect, which lasts effectively forever. And if you fail it, you risk a lot of that backfiring and coming back to you in a negative way. But for spells, one of the spells that I'm putting together for this upcoming booklet, it's called Cheater's Gamble, and it's all about chance and really taking a gamble on making something happen here. So the way it works is you make a bunch of rolls with soul and heart, or soul and brain, whatever your spellcasting ability is. And then you can combine them, all the successes you have, take them as individual dice and set them aside. And then you can use them in later checks, adding them in as you go. That's the basic function of the spell. But depending on how successful you roll the spell, there can be a couple of adverse effects. If the spell goes wild, as in you get kind of the minimal amount of successes that you need, the environment, which is its own character, gains an identical pool of dice to you, and it can start doing the exact same thing, substituting successes in, and really, making your day kind of hellish. If the spell goes more in your way, if it's directed or obedient, similar kind of substituting effects, but the environment's kind of curved. It's not given as powerful an effect as you have. And then finally, if the spell goes fully controlled, if you roll literally every die you roll is a success, the environment's out of luck, and it doesn't get anything.
Okay. Well, that's not the worst backfire that could happen. At least, it's not perilous life or death situation, hopefully. Fingers crossed.
Well, that's only... All of those effects are only if you can get any amount of control. If the spell goes totally uncontrolled, if you don't roll any successes, then it's up to the game and the environment to determine what happens.
Okay, I was totally wrong.
At the mercy of the winds.
Okay, I was totally wrong. There is risk. So what, for example, if I was running this game as a GM, what would you kind of do in that situation? Say that the roll has gone terribly wrong. How would I give consequence and meaning to that?
I've had a couple of spells go totally uncontrolled. My playtesters loved bringing magicians, and I hope that your listeners will take my warning emphatically. Don't start the game as a sorcerer. It is very dangerous and has the real potential to backfire on you. And I had a couple of characters who've come in as full mages, and I remember at in one game they're on the high seas. They're trying to get across a tempestuous ocean through a storm. One character casts a spell, tries to kind of clear up the storm in an instantaneous, in a moment of clarity, and fails totally. And so the next thing that happens is, adding to the chaos of the storm and the lightning and the thunder, a gigantic koi fish just lurches up out of the water and starts attacking the boat. And that kind of, it's with the spell, which was trying to kind of get the sea life to help with this motion and trying to kind of get the environment under control through this angle of the sea life and the power of the great whale. But at the same time, then it creates a very clear new, which I think nicely developed the story. And the effect that followed was it was a wonderful series of rounds after that, which finally ended with a shipwreck, and the game went on from there.
Wow. Okay. Well, you mentioned your advice to not start being a sorcerer when you start playing, which makes sense given the calamity you've just explained. But let's talk a little bit about the characters and the people that will be playing if I was a player in the game. So, who will we be in this game?
Your people, regular people. There's no classes. There's no real kind of heroic powers. The closest you get, I think, is with there's very special meals that you can eat that give you extra abilities in addition to your talents. But past that, you're just a person. You're a person who lives in this world. You're facing the same struggle as a person. You're looking for food. You're looking for shelter. You're looking for clean water. You're looking for safety from the environment. And that's really the conceit of the game. Is you're not really like a heroic character. You're not really a superhero or anything of that kind of like status that elevates you above kind of normal folk. You're just a person, and you're down in there struggling with everybody else.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really easy setting to put a party together, I guess, because you're just saying to people, you're all people that live in the same place. And so you're part of a community, and you're all just trying to get by together. Thinking about the game, so how, if I was looking to run this, what sort of stories am I telling as the game master? Like, what does a typical session or a campaign look like? How do I structure that? If I'm used to playing something like D&D, I'm used to like throwing big monsters in or giving them big, world-changing events. But this feels a bit different. How does it work in this game in Cold Sun?
For game mastering, it's all about this idea of encounters and environments and it really is open to a lot of what you want. When designing, what I try and do is pretty open. One that allows for a lot of options. So there's options here to play, within the constraints of what the game is for, this idea of wilderness and survival, play a lot of options, up to and including, living in a city and operating the constraints of a Bronze Age city-state. So the main advice I would give to game masters is think about how society and civilization with your party, and vice versa. How is the party in their own quest for food and shelter and safety facing off against or encountering other people who exist in the world? It shouldn't, I think, all be about it shouldn't all be about being alone in the wilderness, facing off against nothing but the wilderness. Other people, I think, factor in really heavily because it's their choices and their resources that can really fundamentally influence how an adventure is shaped. The shape of the adventure is like an idea I use a lot. It sounds nice, but it also is very literal. When you're putting together an adventure, you should figure out kind of roughly what the shape of it looks like. And as a game master, I'm pretty improv based. I'm much more I plan from session to session. I don't really plan like advance or even months in advance. I plan like 2 weeks in advance maximum. Now, mostly that's because my regular groups, whom I love, have a habit to twist and turn in directions that I didn't necessarily expect.
Sure.
But great thing for me because I really thrive in that environment. But I think, whether or not you're playing a game that is much more structured and has kind of a clearer path and goal, or if you're playing just kind of day-to-day survival, there's something for you.
Fabulous, thank you. Well, as I mentioned, the game is available on itch right now, so you can go download the Quick Start for free and the core books there as well. But it sounds like you have some future plans for Cold Sun as well. So are we going to be seeing, because this came out last year in 2024, is that right? So is there more to come?
Yes, December, 1st of December, I believe. Or maybe 30th of November, one of those two. Sometime in the past. Whatever.
Yes.
Yes. I work on roughly a yearly schedule, and this is for now at least a hobby. So what I'm doing here is every year or so I'm putting out a release. The next big thing is called The Land of Yaka. It is a setting book focused on a setting that, as I mentioned kind of earlier in the podcast, or show, podcast show. What do I call
Either
this?
way, both, either or.
What I mentioned previously in the show was this idea of a setting without humans, in which humanity is not present, and you don't have that as like a baseline, which is something I've always been interested in terms of fantasy series. And the Land of Yaka is an upcoming setting book focused on a totally different world made up of whole cloth, which contains no humans whatsoever. In fact, it doesn't even contain much that is recognizable to a like human world in terms of life. Most animals are synapsids, and not of the mammalian kind that we are, rather kind of pre-Cretaceous style synapsids, and things like that. And there's a number of humanoid, but very, in a lot of ways, alien species that will be available to play. It's set on a single continent in the South Polar region, and it will become alongside a adventure module that I've written called The Smiling Pass, as well as the booklet of spells I also referenced earlier in the show.
Fantastic. That's great. So that's obviously in development and will be coming later. If people are interested in learning more about that or getting notifications when it's available, what's the best way for them to kind of stay in touch or follow?
You can follow my Blue Sky at robertcambias.bluesky.org. Is it .org or .com? .app. All right, let me take that one again.
Yeah.
You can follow me on Blue Sky at blobert-cambias.bluesky.social. Or you can just give the itch page a follow. That's robertcambias.itch.io. Each of the kind of Cold Sun installments is going to be its own page. You can either bookmark and keep checking in back on the Cold Sun page, where I'm probably going to be putting up devlogs, updating whenever new stuff comes out. Or you can just follow my page and keep an eye on my itch.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Robert, thank you so much for coming on and chatting about Cold Sun. It's been really interesting hearing more about it from you. I loved reading through the quick start when I got that, and now the core rulebook with even more things. So if anyone's listening and found it vaguely interesting, please go along to the itch page and download and pick up a copy, because the best way to support indie tabletop RPG creators is to buy their stuff if you can. But Robert, I do have one more question for you before you go today, and that is if you have any other games that you'd like to recommend. So any other tabletop RPGs that you haven't worked on yourself, and of course are not D&D.
Well, I now have two things to recommend. The first thing is anything by Evelyn Moreau. She's a lovely trans game designer on itch.io, evelyn.itch.io. I enjoy all of their stuff, and it's really striking. Beautiful art style too. But I also will recommend my friend Justin's The Life of Iron, which just released on Itch. It is also all original art, and he has been working on it basically since I started Cold Sun. In fact, he started a month or so earlier than I did, and also has come to this point of publication. And both of us did a lot of working back and forth. I have him to credit for a lot of the proofreading on my project, and it's been a pleasure to kind of game design together and work that out.
Fantastic. Two great recommendations there for a game, and one for a general just designer for all of their games. So thank you very much. Well, I think that comes to the end of our time. Robert, thank you so much for coming on. A real pleasure to meet you.
Thank you again for having me.
Of course. And thank you to everyone who's watched and listened. We'll be back next week with another indie tabletop RPG to share with you. But for now, that's all. Thank you very much. Bye.